The Leafs are back from Sweden, and we've already seen a couple of paper transactions. A few players from this roster being sent down to the AHL. What does this mean? And, of course, is John Klingberg headed for the LTIR? Welcome back to Third Man In. I'm Zack Phillips, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the John Klingberg injury situation, what's going on there, how this affects potential roster moves that could be made, whether trades might be coming around the corner, that kind of stuff, as well as some of his injury history. And as to close it out, we'll talk about some of the transactions that have gone down since the Maple Leafs did return home from Sweden, notably Bobby McMann and Benoit being sent down to the minors. What does that mean? Why was that done? We'll get into that towards the end. Before we get to that, though, before we get to the Klingberg news, I do want to remind people, if you're watching this right now and you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe here to the channel, and turn on notifications so you get notified every time that we go live or videos just like this one drop here on the channel. It does help support the show, trying to get back to 1,000 subscribers here on this channel. So any and all subscribers are appreciated. Thank you to everyone who does help out. Let's get to the important stuff. Let's stop beating around the bush. First and foremost, John Klingberg. Could this guy be headed to the LTIR? Well, this will play into what we're talking about later on in this video as well, and why those transactions might be important. But first thing first, with John Klingberg, this does not look good for him by all accounts in regards to the fact that he's not practicing. There's no talk of him playing at all. He travels with the team to Sweden. He doesn't even get out on the ice. There's barely any photos of him out and about doing things. You imagine he's probably at that point, they're just saying, hey, go see some family. We're home in Sweden. Like, take your time, enjoy your country, take this time for yourself to recover. It's all good. But then when it comes to what they're saying in the media and all the reports that are coming out about it, things do not look great for John Klingberg. Now, I do want to remind people, because I know notably Sens fans are going to hop into this video and sit here and be like, oh, he's not injured. They do this all the time. You can't get away with this. But the reality is John Klingberg has dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. I went back and you go look at his injury history. He was injured 3 times during the 2019-2020 season. All 3 lower body injuries. He was injured in the 2020-2021 season, lower body injury. Multiple injuries in 21-22 included lower body injuries. 22-23 included lower body injuries. This season, heading into this year, lower body injury. By all accounts, the injury that he's currently dealing with, lower body injury. This guy has had a long list, a long history of not only injuries, but specifically lower body injuries. And that's exactly what he suffered going into this year. Throughout his career, you did see a massive decline in his level of play from where he was when he was the top of his game, being this guy who's going to be paid mass amounts of money for long periods of time in Dallas. Kind of started to turn down a little bit, and they said, we don't know. He says, I'm going to take a chance on myself. Doesn't work out. He goes to Anaheim. He gets traded to Minnesota, and you've seen a slow decline. So realistically, when you take the $4 million swing on him, I think it was fair, because there was a good chance you were sitting there looking at this guy going, wow, $4 million, what a steal we just got for John Klingberg. $4 million is well below what he should be paid if he's playing at the top of his game. Now, there was injury risk, so we can't let Tree Living completely off the hook on that, knowing this history, but you can't also predict that the guy's going to get injured in the preseason and re-injure this thing that he's had coming up throughout his career, which it seems like is what's going on right now. So, few different things. Either he didn't fully recover from what happened to him in the preseason when he hopped back in here, he re-aggravated it, or throughout his time, it's just never actually got to 100%. Even looking over Amy Irvin at thehockeywriter.com, she said Keefe was talking about the fact that Keefe has alluded that the injury might be fairly serious, noted the team has explored aggressive treatment options for Klingberg. He has dealt with significant injuries in the preseason. He did deal with that in the preseason. Like, it looks like the Leafs and Klingberg are preparing for something kind of drastic here, whether that be surgery or a long rehab process with him being off the ice for a long period of time. There was also reports coming out of Sweden that he had spoke to Swedish media talking about the fact that he's desperate to get back on the ice, but he doesn't know what he's going to be able to do when he gets back on, how impactful he can be, how much of difference he can make. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with John Klingberg that just leads to the idea that he could be headed to the LTIR. Now, if you're the Maple Leafs, you'd obviously prefer John Klingberg be on the ice playing at his peak. Because, truth be told, every single person in Toronto, analytics, eye test, whatever you were, could sit there and look at John Klingberg and say, this guy's not doing well enough. He's not doing what he should be. He's not living up to expectations, whatever it was. However you want to deem it, he just wasn't good enough to start this season. He wasn't what John Klingberg could be or what this Leafs management, this Leafs staff had hoped that he would be. Maybe it was because of the injury. Maybe it's just because of his level of play has fallen off over the last little while. Regardless, not good enough. So now you're sitting here saying we still need to upgrade this defense. We still need to make some changes. Well, he's being paid $4.1 million. It's been rumored that Brad Treliving is out there looking for Zadorov or Tanev, but both if possible. Well, if that trade was going to happen and you're going to keep a guy like Klingberg and not remove too much salary, you're probably going to have to get those guys 50% retained, which, what does that mean? Sweeter deal going the other way. So, if you can put Klingberg on the LTIR here, it might reduce the need. It doesn't eliminate, but reduce the need to clear the cap space or reduce the need to have Calgary retain any salary. Because keep in mind, Tanev and Zadorov, both unrestricted free agents at the end of the season. So you're not looking at some type of deal where you're going to be holding on to these guys for another year, 2 years past this one, where Calgary's going to be sitting there eating up this contract for a long period of time. It's done at the end of the season. If you can find a way to get out from underneath them having to eat any cap space, that is optimal for this trade. Because then you don't have to send as much across. Your deal doesn't have to be as sweet. Whatever it is, you can just take on these players. You can put Klingberg on the LTIR, open up $4.1 million, and deal with that later. It's something that could help you out within this move. And the other thing to remember here, if you're going to have to dish Klingberg in a deal because you're sitting here saying, trade Klingberg, bring in these defensemen, it's an upgrade over him, he's not good enough, whatever it is, well, you have to remember now that whatever team you're sending him to is going to eat that $4.1 million. So you're going to have to sweeten the deal to get them to take him. There's a lot of moving parts. Whereas if you take Klingberg, you put him on the LTIR, you hold him off, you open up that space, you also free yourself up for some room and some time on that deal where, hey, maybe he does get healthy, he's going to come back, he's off the LTIR, you need to make a decision because you're about to run out of cap space or exceed the cap. Well, now you don't have to make that deal right now. And the other thing is, if you're looking at Klingberg right now, and you're looking at bringing in Zadorov and Tanev, you're sitting there with this realization in mind that you're pressed. And Calgary knows that you're pressed. Calgary knows that you are stuck against the cap. That adds a little bit of desperation, and that means Calgary can go out there and find other suitors, get them to offer more maybe, push up the price on the Leafs, push up the price on the other teams because they're saying, hey, you got to get rid of this money to take these guys on. We can't just trade them to you. You don't have the room for it. Well, Klingberg on LTIR means that you will have the room for it. I feel like there's some moving pieces that could go on here. And then later on down the road, you could look at Klingberg and say, we can't fit you back in. Our decor is good enough as it is. You're going to take up too much money. Flip him out for somebody, for a pick. Flip him out just to get rid of that. Flip him out with a pick. Like you're just swapping Klingberg and a 5th round pick for 3 years down the road. Future considerations. Get out of the cap because he is only a 1-year deal as well. That's what people will have to remember in this whole situation too. So a couple things that I think could go on there. I hope all in all he's okay. It seems by all accounts he was pretty upset with what went on during this injury process. I'm glad that they were able to bring him to Sweden, but even it seems like he's realizing that he's not fully ready to go. He's not going to be able to help the team at this point in time. So I hope for Klingberg's sake he is okay. I truthfully still hold hope that he actually could turn things around and help this Leafs team because everyone was really quick to jump on Bertuzzi and Domi. It seems to be working out now, doesn't it? Well, That's kind of where we're at with the John Klingberg update, what could be going on there, if he could be headed to LTIR, and what some of the options are. But kind of the back end to this, and the other thing that I noticed here today, looks like the Leafs might be making room for Connor Timmins. You do see paper transactions here. You see Benoit sent to the Marlies, loaned to the Marlies, McMann loaned to the Marlies. It feels like the Leafs might just be opening up some cap space to bring back Connor Timmins, fit him into that spot. The other thing is, if they're bringing back Connor Timmins, doesn't look like John Klingberg's going to be hopping up here into this lineup at any point anytime soon, because if he was ready, then you're probably not as much of in a rush to get Timmins back in here and have to open those or push those guys out to get him into this roster. So when I'm looking at Timmins, I think he's probably ready. By all accounts, from Mark Masters' practice videos that we've seen, he's been running power plays, he's been taking part in drills, he's traveling with the team. Like, he's doing all these things to get himself closer and closer and closer to rejoining this team on a game day level. I think he's probably ready to go. The Leafs have time off until Friday's Thanksgiving game against the Blackhawks. You got another few days here to prepare yourself. I think we see Connor Timmins soon. But I also think that this also opens up the possibility of us not seeing John Klingberg for a longer period of time. That's kind of all I have for today. Those are the thoughts on what's going on with this Leafs team, why these transactions are happening, and some of the reports that have come out about Klingberg recently. If you did enjoy the content, please make sure to like this video, subscribe here to the channel, turn on notifications. It does help support the show. Trying to get back to 1,000 subscribers here on the channel. 721 right now. Close, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel. I do appreciate the support. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Look forward to reading all of those. And as always, keep believing.